What's that?
Can't pull a chair out when you're pulling
Thank
back on the back.
Come with tonic. Come with tonic.
I
Okay.
wish.
John O'Connell,
Already?
how's that?
Wow.
Board and committee reports. It's Mr. John O'Connell, Chair of the Stormwater Committee, and he is going to enlighten us on his endeavors.
Well, I'm going to try. Actually, I got 3 different things to talk about tonight. 2 are have-tos, and 1 is I really would like to because everybody's on my back to do it. The first one is to ask your permission to put a stormwater public education flyer out in the April tax bill. We do this every year. I always ask, you always say yes. It's a relatively cheap way of accommodating the EPA requirement.
Motion for flyer, tax bill? Oh,
Yeah, so moved.
Yep. Discussion? Second, do we have a second?
I did second.
All right, discussion.
Well,
Are
you
we
guys are
allowed to
easy.
put more than one in there? Because we have the municipal building committee that may want to put something in that also, correct? So are we allowed to put more than one item in
As
effect?
long
I
as
think
it
it gets
doesn't
expensive when you do that. wasn't
increase the
aware that
postage.
there is a requirement.
Well,
I'm quite happy to back off. If,
just a question.
Well, how much information do you need to put in there, John?
I'm sorry?
How much information do you need to put in there? Could it be a small
One sheet,
little?
8.5 by 11,
The-
single sheet.
Will it fill the whole sheet, or can it just fill like a top portion of it, or?
We could do a 2-sider, certainly.
If you could do a side, we could do a side.
Yeah, we could.
Like that.
I-
Yeah.
I like
Eric and I
that.
can sort that out, but
Or-
the first thing that
Or a
comes,
half sheet?
Well,
Yeah.
now unfold it, so why not, it's a single piece of paper, it's a small.
They'll
thing.
unfold it, so they'll see
So you
both
see
sides.
both sides.
Also, is there anything that you can do to, can we use the public TV station?
oh yeah, we're covered, okay?
Okay.
This is something I'm trying to do because it's cheap and easy and it's over and above. In case we miss something, we could say, hey, we did this instead, you know? We are covered for this year. So if it doesn't get out in April, we're good, okay? I would like to get it out in April, but I'm not bad enough to put Eric off the building, public safety building. That certainly trumps this.
Okay.
It might not if we weren't already covered, but we are.
Okay,
So you want me to work something out? My feeling is we want to do just one, and that will be him.
1 second.
I'll shut up, yes.
Mr. Chairman, motion to amend the motion to include MBC.
Or should we do some sort of amendment to the motion to include John if there is room after the municipal building committee?
I like that, yeah, that's,
So make that,
yeah.
Okay.
We can sort that out, but
if a motion should be made, if there is enough room for John to use, that's good. If not, he'll wait till next year.
we'll do something
Okay.
else, yeah. Or we already have done something else. We'll do this again next year.
A motion to give the municipal building committee the ability to put a 8 by 11 in the tax folder and to work with storm water management if possible so that both can go out.
Second,
second.
any more discussion on that amendment to the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the second thing is also a
Do we need to
have-to.
vote on the motion? Is that all taken care of, or do we need 2
You know what, that's
votes?
a question for a pay grade. I'll look at Tracy.
You
sorry.
voted on the amendment,
Louder.
vote on the
So-
motion.
Yeah, enough?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Oh, okay. This is also an EPA requirement. Usually I do this in March, but since I'm bothering you tonight, I might as well bother you once. A rundown on where we are with the planning for the new program. The old program just chugs along and we are meeting the requirements. But obviously, the way we're set up, we're gonna be totally overwhelmed if we wait for the whistle to blow when the new one starts. Because the new one is way, way, way bigger and more onerous than the one we're working on now. There's 6 components: public education, public involvement, illicit discharge detection and cleaning it up. Basically what Doug does anyway as far as erosion control and construction sites. Town documents that encourage green construction. And the last one is good housekeeping for town facilities. okay? Starting at the beginning, public education. This past year, we did a stormwater fair down at the Fish and Wildlife, which we are not going to do again. Every year, we get fewer people. It's a lot of work, tain't worth it, okay? We're going to meet that requirement some other way. It was a good thing because we were able to get Newburyport credit for what we did, and there's a deal going there that the mayor has signed off on. But there's other ways we can do that. And that was an awful lot of work, not for us, but for the guests, the various environmental organizations that had tables there. It's a lot of work for them to lug their stuff in, and they're going to talk to 40 kids, spend it all morning there and get the message out to almost nobody. The second one is the public involvement, and since this is a volunteer effort, we're pretty much calling that good, because we're not doing it, for the most part, we're not doing it with bothering town officials. We're doing it with volunteers. And we also will have a public hearing for our notice of intent, which we have to have out 60 days after the whistle blows. And originally, well, most recently, the most recent lie we've heard is that it'll come out in January to be effective in July, a 6-month lead time. It's already halfway through January and we have not heard a word, so who knows? It's sort of like the checks in the mail. It's one of those things we've heard so many times. That I was a little excited this time because it seemed like it was really going to finally happen, but we'll see. Third one is illicit discharge, and there's quite a bit going on there. We have started testing. We've bought all of the test kits that we need and the reagents to go with it. We've been testing in Byfield Center because there is a dry weather flow coming out of that culvert you and I were just talking about at the Main Street Bridge over the Parker River. And the requirement is we hit those first. Anywhere there's a dry weather flow, clearly something's wrong. So we've hit that. Because most recently we, within the past week, we did E. coli testing, and because of the temperature, the results are, who knows, but it looks favorable. I'm betting at the moment that what we have is groundwater finding its way into that broken pipe we were just talking about in front, near the mini-mart. I'm really hopeful that that's what it is. We do seem to have some indication of laundry water going in. That's a lot better than a failed septic system, okay? Way, way better. Speaking of E. coli testing, the mayor has signed off on a deal we made a couple of years ago. City of Newburyport is doing our E. coli testing in the sewage treatment plant lab. In exchange, Yvonne and I are going to run their public education program for them. Wow. It works out well. We like it. John Eric White, who is stuck with my job in Newburyport, hates it. So, the perfect deal.
John?
The sewage treatment.
John,
Yes, sir.
Yvonne Boswell,
Yes.
yourself,
Yes.
is Martha and
Oh,
Doug on that committee? They're on the committee too.
Directors.
Right, so
Yeah.
it's 4 people on your committee?
I'm sorry?
4 people on your committee?
Oh, there's
No,
more
no,
than
no,
that.
How many?
Chuck, I don't remember, I'll have to count them.
If
I'll
we-
tell you who they are.
Well,
Chuck, myself,
Good.
Yvonne, Martha, Doug, Debbie,
Good.
James,
Who?
James.
you and James.
And
Yeah.
James, see, some people don't realize how broad the scope of that
Yeah.
committee is, so
Yeah.
good, like
But
me.
Basically, James has been a tremendous help. He's definitely a working member, as are Martha and Doug, because I don't make a move without bouncing it off one or both of them.
So you've
And
got a
very
lot of,
frequently
lot
they'll
of
talk me out of
talent,
my
lot of
crazy
talent
idea.
on that
Say
committee.
again?
Lot of talent on that committee.
Well, you got a lot of horsepower. This is my main horsepower right here. She's my enforcer.
All right. Just wanted to make it kind of
Now,
clear.
everybody has been great. Everybody has been great, yeah. So we've got that deal going. And the other thing to report is that I didn't dare ask him, but he volunteered. James is giving us a small piece of the barn to put up, and we're just about ready to go with that. An 8 by 10 roughly testing center. The word that we got when this whole thing started was, oh, no big deal, you guys can use probes and you get the answer just like that. Well, we tried that, and working out of the tailgate of Yvonne's SUV does not work well. Okay, we really need a place where the wind isn't blowing, you know, that we can spread out and work, or she can spread out and work. So the way we're gonna run it is bring the samples back, she'll do all the stuff there in the lab under controlled conditions. It's not a lab from the research tent, it's just a processing of these tests. And the E. coli stuff we will bring at the end of the testing period. They've got to be refrigerated, we'll bring down to the sewage treatment plant, and they're gonna run the samples for us. And they have been extremely welcoming. You know. And we're not doing anything for them, we're doing stuff for somebody else in the city. So, they've been great. The erosion control stuff is what Doug does anyway. As far as town documents, within the past 6 months, the Concom had a public hearing and adopted revised illicit discharge and erosion control regulations, stormwater regs. And at the moment, we're just about ready to send out for review, internal review, the revised subdivision rules and regs that we've been working on for quite a while. Planning board has. So I'm very hopeful. I've been kind of weasel wording. This is something we should have done a long time ago. I've been weasel wording EPA in the last 2 or 3 annual reports. Looks like this time I can look everybody in the eye and say we actually did it. The good housekeeping thing, Jim Cunningham is the point person on that. And we've met with Tim in considerable detail. What the goal is to get everything written without bothering those guys, other than to play 20 questions. And James went with us to the Merrimack Valley series of seminars on this subject, on DPW operations, and he pretty much knows what it is that we have to do. So we're talking with him full-time, obviously. We're starting right now. We met with Warren Manter to get a handle on the parks guy that does his fields, and he's in the process of putting that out for bid. So as soon as we get a new one, we'll sit down with him, and that's about it. Okay.
That's enough.
So things are relatively under control. And we're just waiting, hopefully, that they will get it out. I was telling JR earlier, I started this 5 years ago when I had a real fighting chance of living long enough to finish the 5-year program. Now I'm 77, and I'm having some doubts as to whether I'll make it to the end. So, anyway, the final thing to bother you with is the Sandy Grant sea level rise study. And there's a number of components to this. The funding came from the Department of Interior to Fish and Wildlife, who gave it to the National Wildlife Federation up in Montpelier, who has subbed some of it to Ipswich River Watershed Association, and they're our primary contact person. In addition, they've hired a fairly large engineering firm, GEI, to do 2 studies, one of which has nothing to do with us, and one was how can we save some property so that when the marsh gets wiped out, we have stuff adjacent to the marsh that can turn into marsh. Well, there was a lot of problems with that. The scariest words in the English language are, I'm from the federal government and I'm coming to help you. That terrifies most people. And that's kind of what happened. That is, I got a promise, I raised several and several other people did, about that particular function. And I have been promised that that's going to go to a file drawer and never leave it, okay? There's political ramifications of that as well, that we don't want to go there.
Well, you're talking about.
I'm sorry?
You're talking about some of the insight from some of the people that are talking about marsh migration.
Right,
And that
exactly.
could go as far as to trying to actually buy property, trying to set aside eminent
They haven't
domain, the
gotten
whole
that
5
far.
yards, but anyway.
They got as far as identifying it.
Yeah.
Some of it has already been permitted for very expensive high-income kind of stuff.
Yep.
And some of it belongs to people who are not consulted in this. So yeah, exactly.
Time out.
All right. The principle is sound, because the marsh should, but it's something we should do locally
Yep.
and do it with some sense. The most obvious thing wasn't even mentioned, and that was the stretch starting behind me, going all the way to Parker River. That stuff is virtually worthless because you can't get to it. Most of it's wetland now, and that's a really good marsh. If you're looking for a home for a salt marsh, that would be it. And that's certainly cheaper than some of the places that were named. Anyway,
Who owns that property?
I'm sorry?
Who owns that property?
Just about everybody. No, directly behind me, the Littlefield family own those woods for whatever reason.
So they're all privately owned?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Some of it, no, I take that back, Alicia. Some of it is owned by Fish and Wildlife.
And some of it's
Okay.
town owned.
Pardon me?
Some of it is town owned also.
Okay, but your former property went down there, right?
It did, but the town property was right behind it.
Oh, there was town property there? Okay.
See, it's kind of for people that are kind of trying to wrap their hands around this too. What John is saying is almost no different than what exists now. It's just almost trying to formalize, which sometimes environmentalists can, because all the marsh I work on that isn't refuge and isn't greenbelt is privately owned. It's owned by people that used to have farms that used to cut salt marsh hay. I mean, over Salisbury, for instance, there's 60 different owners on the high marsh. Many different owners on the marsh behind us, a lot less than in Salisbury. So when in time that the sea level rise produces a situation where salt water migrates up the slope to High Road, and the trees start to die because of the intrusion of salt water, and all those conditions start to change in the future, it's still gonna be privately owned.
Sure. But it also will be salt marsh.
And then, and it probably doesn't have houses in it anyway.
And it never could.
Right, so really, nothing will be different, it's just that John O'Connell or Jeff Walker might own marsh now instead of the Greenbelt and other people that own salt marsh. It's
Exactly.
not complicated.
Yeah, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with the principle, just, it's a kind of a thing that frightens people when you say it without talking to them. The biggie, in my opinion, is what Woods Hole is doing. They're doing an enormous study that will combine, computer modeling, combine Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3, Cat 4 hurricanes with the range of top and bottom of projected sea level rise right now, 2030 and 2070, okay? And that is going to be extremely valuable. That is worth a lot of money if we had to pay for it, okay? The really good news is that Mass DOT is doing a similar study all along the Massachusetts coast, and apparently, I'm told, provisions have been made to marry the two studies, okay, which will extend the coastal study inland. It's a really big deal for Newburyport because their industrial park is, of course, extremely vulnerable. Very, I mean, the 36 hurricane, the 36 flood, it was not a hurricane. It was just an early, very vicious snow melt. And that had water 2 or 3 feet on what was then Common Pasture Road, it's now Graft Road. And that flooding was even without benefit of a hurricane. So it was just several days of rain in a very warm March. So that is basically it. When Woods Hole gets done, that'll be the end of phase 1, which is what are our problems. Phase 2 is what the heck are we gonna do about them? And that, of course, won't start probably until early summer, as a guess.
The model that John's talking about is the model from the Sandy Grant, which the team I put together in the early parts, and then the broader perspective of team members from the Great Marsh Revitalization Task Force, and actually DCI, who came into our partnership. That's $800,000 from the Sandy grant, which we actually got. Another $100,000 was contributed by the refuge. That's the model that John's talking about, that you've probably heard me talk about. It's very important to John for some of the upland reasons,
Sure.
which is important to a lot of people. And actually, some of the reasons that people never think about, we have a lot of marsh behind Plum Island that no one ever really realizes is a tremendous value for storm surge protection for Plum Island. When that marsh disappears and there's a lagoon out there, it's gonna be treacherous. But one of the things that's incredibly important for some of the other team members in the Sandy grant is a perspective to eelgrass, green crab, especially the Plum Island Bridge. A lot of that model is emphasized around what that tidal restriction does to our Great Marsh. So, and that's, all the information is being gathered by Boston University, and Woods Hole Group is doing the modeling. It's a 3D model, which can go and sometimes will go with the two-dimensional models of the Corps of Engineers, which sometimes, I don't know the degree of the modeling processes that DOT is gonna have in place, but it should be a really good tool as we start to think about what we're gonna do, develop living coastline types of thinking, how we're gonna moderate, you know, what happens with warmer weather and sea level rise, and what our exposures are gonna be. What is it, 6 feet for 2,100?
Well, it's
Everyone's buying
between
into-
2 and 6.
We're kinda going along with 2, which makes more sense to us. But I mean, if you're on the Great Marsh, which used to be saltwater species, there's tremendous freshwater, I mean, there's golden seaside, there's tremendous amount of freshwater plants now in our marshes. The marsh is changing.
Sure.
So as John has mentioned, the 100-year storms, all the other things we talk about and all the other things we see. So what John has done for the town of Newbury with the Sandy grant is really good. What other towns are doing it? Newburyport, Salisbury?
Yeah, Salisbury,
Ipswich.
Newburyport, and Newbury
Ipswich.
are one group, and then
Right.
Essex, Rowley, and Ipswich are the third.
So it's
A
a
second.
really good thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a valuable exercise, and now is a good time to be doing it.
And it sets the precedent.
Say again?
Sets the precedent
Oh, yeah.
on how to do it.
Yeah.
That's what people don't realize. The idea of this is, it's putting a modem in place, a
Yeah.
paradigm in place for how to do this
Yeah.
as time goes on.
Yeah, preaching and talking about it and wringing your hands is not terribly useful. This is the beginnings of serious planning and the beginnings of, you know, how are we gonna pay for it? The how are we gonna pay for it is gonna be, that's a horrible thing to think about, and it isn't gonna have to, it can't be us. We couldn't possibly do it. It's gonna have to be a statewide thing, really. And, okay, I just want to say, whatever may have sounded at all critical about this program, nobody knows about this. We never had massive sea level rise before, okay? We've learned how to design bridges and build buildings, but how to deal with a rising sea level is something we're all learning at this point. And, you know, mistakes will be made, time will be wasted, but thank you
Thanks,
very
John.
much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Public hearings? None? Town administrator report, would you
Wait a
like?
minute.
Oh, who? Oh,
Boards and committee
sorry. You're getting smaller, you're too far away in my vision.
I'll let you slide this time. Eric Swan, Newburyport, Newbury Municipal Building Committee. Just thinking about John there for a minute. So to use the words of a very smart man, preaching, talking about it, and then wringing your hands doesn't really get you anywhere. So we're in the middle of this. And I was last before you, I gave you an outline, I talked about what we were doing, what we were planning to do. We missed a meeting because of snow, and then we had a meeting this morning. So, as a recap, we're still in the process of reproducing a feasibility report. And just to refresh everybody, we had a Newbury Public Safety Complex, a feasibility report for new town hall, new police station combination done in 2013, and another one done in March 2014 in terms of working on a public safety complex, working on then switching that and creating a town hall police station project. The whole effort that we feel that we're doing is we're trying to, again, solve the most facility issues that the town has and combine them in a project that can save money in the process of construction and then save money in the process of doing it sooner than later and save money for operational costs. At the same time, using the value of synergy of location of town departments and putting that all back together. It seems that for the early studies, certainly when we were talking to the fire department, there wasn't much interaction or input from the outside residents. As we move forward, we've had votes. People have said the votes mean various things. We have a charge from you. We're working forward with that. We think the Municipal Building Committee thinks that follows suits with what we have previously done. And we hope to prove that out. And so that's what we're doing. We currently have the same architect that produced those two reports, redrafting plans for an updated program, which will get an updated cost, which will then get updated information in the report, hopefully in a very simplified way, in terms of people being able to understand the information and why the decisions were made, and then third-party costing, and then the Municipal Building Committee will take the recommendation as we had presented it to you previously and add soft costs and add some other criteria and value-added criteria and present that back to you as our recommendation for you to make a recommendation to go to the annual town meeting. So, as these projects happen, the more you do them, the more input, the more thoughts, the more answers are needed, an additional expanded explanation, and so it's taking a lot, and we had this thing called the holidays in there, and so it's taken a lot longer to produce what we thought we could produce fairly quickly after the annual town meeting. We stood up at the last special town meeting and asked for some additional funds, and those were a number that we deemed reasonable to hire the architect to redo that report, hire a third-party cost estimator, so we have a totally independent person providing a cost assessment. It's not the Municipal Building Committee, it's not the architect that's putting together the plans. Architects are good with numbers, but that's not exactly what we do. And then we would have some money hopefully left over to possibly engage somebody else to give a third-party separate opinion about the project that we're proposing. Understanding that I knew that we needed to hire an OPM at some point in this process per the state laws, but truthfully, I wasn't totally versed on the state laws. I've taken a course in a seminar, now an official whatever. And after 4 days, I understand the process. And so understanding that that's what we said we'd like to do with that money, we're not quite there in order to be able to do that. What I have done is produce a timeline. This was sent to Martha and to Tracy, but basically I have an approach to hiring an OPM, an Otis project manager, hiring one as soon as possible, and hiring one after the town elections. The thought would be, and the thought is that after the last presentation, the town spoke up and said, look, we don't like the idea of paying for this much of design up front and then having to be on the hook for the rest of the project later. That doesn't seem to make sense. We were presenting it like, we'll do it step by step. We won't get everybody totally involved. You can make decisions. You'll have more leverage if you do it step by step. And so now we're thinking that, and we're going to present you with a total project cost. Here it is. Quickly, without to bog you down, but if we were to hire an OPM after the town election, we would have the annual town meeting, hopefully that's a favorable vote, have the town voting in May, have a favorable vote, and then there's a series of advertisements that you need to do for 2 weeks. You need to then issue the RFP saying, hey, this is what I want you guys to submit to us. You need to give them several weeks to respond. They need to submit it on a certain date and time. committee then needs to take those. Hopefully we get 5 or 6. Hate to get like 11, but you know, hopefully that we don't just get 1 or 2. Review that, come up with a process of assessing those. That process of assessing them is in the RFQ, which I will show you in a minute. And then the committee would come back to the selectmen and said, through this process, through what we received, we think that these 3 firms should be interviewed. And we'll ask for you, the approving authority, to say, please proceed with that. We'll then notify those firms, give them a couple weeks to prepare their interview, hold the interview, rank them again, and come up with an order, and then come back to the Board of Selectmen and say, this is the firm we'd like to hire. Once we hire that firm, then there's, and the firm is totally selected on their qualifications. The qualifications are all listed in the RFQ, and it spells it out. And I appreciate if you all read a draft. Martha and I have created it. Martha and I have gone through it once. We'll ask Ginny to read it and double check it. And then we'll give you a copy so you can understand it. Everything is spelled out in detail, exactly what we do, so everybody that's competing for this work will understand it. Then, once we select them, there's a negotiation. Tracy will lead that in terms of the fee, and the contract is included in the RFQ. So if we started, let's just say we start right after the May 10th meeting, taking weeks to do this, to get that, trying to meet dates that you're already meeting. I have out until the end of July in order to select that person. If I take the action today, right now, to start, in 2 weeks to get the RFQ finalized, start the advertisement, and go through the exact same process, and hitting certain dates of the selectmen in order to recommend the 3 firms, in order to do the interview time, in order then to make a recommendation to you, it comes down to the 13th of April. And that's a little disappointing, because by the 13th of April, we have about another week and a half, and then we have the annual town meeting. We could hire and start this process, bring this person on board through the process and the interaction of reading a whole bunch of RFQs and going through the interviews. We everyone involved, will gain a fair amount of knowledge in the process. The hope would be that the negotiations would be fairly quickly, would go fairly quickly, and we could have that OPM for the remaining funds that we had asked for show up at a meeting on a Saturday, and then show up at the annual town meeting. And then, depending on whatever happens with the vote, we would have selected an OPM, and that OPM would be in place, even though we don't have any funding for them to do anything. They would be selected on the project. If the vote failed, we would still have an OPM. We could probably write it in there that we reserve the right to start this all over again with a failed vote. But there's a fair amount of effort in it, and certainly going through this process, taking this time, and selecting somebody on qualifications, it is hopeful that the person that we select is the right person, no matter what we choose to do here, there, or anywhere. And to engage an actual OPM that we would ask to submit before we actually advertise and go through this process, sounds like it's counter to what the laws are trying to do. And we've engaged an architect. They're certainly qualified. It's been listed in some of the Inspector General documents that they're certainly allowed to continue on should we choose. They do have to go through the process and be rated like everybody else, but they're not discounted from doing the project. CSS Architects doing the bring somebody else on here on an OPM for short money and then go out. Somebody might feel like they've gotten a leg up. So we have that. Here's a draft RFP. Again, it's the hesitation and what I know from either writing RFPs and responding to RFPs is you get what you ask for. So if we're kind of vague, then we'll have somebody coming up here and the negotiations for fees will be, more difficult and more lengthy, and we may end up having somebody keep coming back to us for more if we're clear about what we want. And right up front, just the advertisement talks about what is the construction cost, what is the schedule, and, you know, what is the size of the building. And those are still things in flux that we just don't have nailed down right now to give to you to get your blessing in order to then put that out in the RFP. It's, I thought it would be a little bit shorter, but by the time it all stacks up with the qualifications and these forms in the back, it's about 20 pages. So, and then there's the town contract, which is standard, which we would use the same contract which was used for the master plan update. It's a standard town contract. So with that, the RFP, with the schedule, CSS Architects is, got an email yesterday saying that hopefully this week sometime soon we will receive our plans. We can go over those sketches, make any comments to them. We would then be into making comments on the book. They can proceed to do some cost estimating. And we can use those plans and then go out and ask a third-party cost estimator. So things are worked. There's a lot getting done. With that, and asking residents and trying to figure out exactly what the vote meant, we do have 5 or 6 residents that show up at every municipal building meeting, which is good. They're interested. We do have slightly different ideas about what the best project is. We're listening. We're trying to move forward with what we've been charged to do and what we're following through on the things that we had done before. There's a lot of work to listen to a lot of different interests, but you know, that's part of the process and part of what we're trying to get at. With that, understanding the charge and re-asking CSS Architects to update what they had previously done, we've asked them to do a little bit more, so hopefully in the third-party costing, we will have some information on feedback for some of these other ideas. We're not trying just to do one thing here and say that's all we're doing. We're still trying to find the best value and the best option for the best project. Things like regional dispatch keep coming up. Things like do one project at a time. Things like involving the fire station keep coming up. These were all things that we thought we had answered, and maybe we had answered, maybe we'd put them in a report, or maybe it came out more clear in a presentation, which isn't really available for others to hear, but those are all things that you'll certainly hear, that we're hearing, and we're trying to address most of those. So that's what we're doing. I think we should, honestly think we should try to move forward with the OPM. I think it will take another week, and by the next meeting, we'll certainly have an opinion of how the RFP is shaked out, exactly what we're asking them to do, and then we could even ask for your direction at that time. Having them available for the annual town meeting is a tough charge. Could happen. It may turn out that somehow this isn't a favorable project, or we only get 1 or 2, and we feel that it's not the right time to make the selection. So that's where we're at.
Eric, do you have in your timeline a proposal for when you expect to be making a recommendation to the selectmen?
Well, I was thinking the end of January, but CSS needs to complete their work. It still needs to go out the door. I guess I'm a little naive in the public process, and it takes weeks instead of days. If I was doing this during my day job, all I was doing, it would happen a lot faster.
Yeah.
If we hired a firm to do it, it would happen a lot faster. But no, I was thinking at the end of January would be the timeline, because I understand, I think we all learned from the last time, there needs to be enough time to get this out to enough people, for enough people to understand it, people to talk to more people and more people, in order for all the residents to understand it. We like that. We have people interested in doing that. We have people that are interested on both sides of the fence, but no, I don't have a timeline.
All right.
So as soon as I see CSS drawings, Martha and I have another discussion on the draft here. maybe there's an email, or maybe after we're not even setting the next municipal building meeting until we see the sketches from CSS Architects, and then we could probably decide that, let you know that something's coming sooner than later.
Eric, I'd like to comment very quickly that that was extremely clear, extremely well thought out, and understanding a little bit of a timeline of how we're gonna proceed makes it hopefully a little clearer for my board and hopefully a little clearer for people watching. And I mean, it's just once again, my compliments to how much work you're doing. Does anyone else from my board have anything that you'd like to ask Eric at this time?
I think it's fantastic to have morning meetings at 7 and come back at 7 o'clock in the evening, so we should do that more and more.
Yeah, and it's work dependent for me, so some weeks are good and some weeks are bad, and if the next project picks up, my time might dwindle down to a lot less, so I'm hopeful this keeps moving along. I think we're making progress. There's still a lot of things to answer and get back out there, so.
If we can be of more assistance, let us know.
Yeah,
Thanks.
is there anything you need from us, or at this point?
I think you need to seriously think about hiring an OPM, and then if we can figure that out within a week, and I said that 2 meetings ago to you, but I hadn't yet run through the draft. Now I have a rough draft of this. I know where the edits need to be. I know where to ask some people for some help to figuring this out, and then I feel like I can give it to you and stand behind it. So within a week or two, yes, you're gonna have to help make a decision that we move forward or we wait until the annual town meeting and the votes are favorable before we move to the next step.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
thank you, Eric.
Jen,
Thank
real
you.
quick.
Yeah, could you just clarify, the connection, if any, to the two pieces of correspondence from Mr. Moran to the building committee? Is there any, is he working with you, or?
Mr. Moran, John, several other residents have kindly been at, I don't know, all the past 5 or 6, did you say that, meetings. Jim has sent many emails. As we were before the holidays, trying to figure out what direction we were going in and trying to get to the next level, and things were dragging out, and Jim was coming with an alternate master plan. I guess it was me who spoke up and said Jim should go to the Board of Selectmen, with questions that Jim's really asking about buildings and dollars, that really he should be back at the board, at the Municipal Building Committee. I don't know if I answered your question, but.
So, he's not representing anything that's from the municipal building, that's on his.
No.
No, he's taken it on his own as a resident to do what he feels is his due diligence.
And I think that'll get clearer as Jim
That goes on.
presents to us and
Okay, thank
we
you.
ask him. Eric, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tracy, do
Mhm.
you wanna go now or wait till the end? It's up to you.
I'll wait till the end, that's fine.
Wait till the end.
Wow.
Under business, Ellen, how do I pronounce that? Is it Shane Perner? Okay, and it's been noted that we need another election worker, and she is asked to be that election worker. Have you looked into the packet, people, and seen, she's got a very
Yeah.
finely done resume. So as far as I'm concerned, I would entertain a motion, but
Motion to approve.
do I have a
Second.
second? Do we have discussion?
None.
Has she done the training at this point, or will she only train after we've appointed her?
I don't know.
Usually Leslie has the trainings just before the elections.
Okay.
So you'd appoint her now, and then before the May election, she'd be trained.
And
Yeah.
that was the question you had from the beginning of what she wrote. She was
Yeah.
asking. Yeah. So we're online, everything's good?
Yeah, I think she looks like a great candidate.
Yes, all those in favor?
Aye.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the next 4 requests for one-day liquor licenses are by Byfield Community Arts Center. I would entertain that I would name all 4, and if there is something that seems askew, hold them back. So, we have a request for a liquor license for Saturday, January 9th, 2/16, from 7:30 to 10:30 PM. We have a request for liquor license from Saturday,
It already
January
passed.
23rd.
Mm.
Everything okay?
January 9th,
January 9th,
What did I
already,
say?
today's the
Wrong?
11th. No, you read it
it's
correct.
already passed.
It's already
Oh,
passed.
Very good catch.
Is it 19th that we're supposed to do?
Let's hold that one out, and we'll consider with the rest and let Alan look at it while we're proceeding with the agenda. Is that okay? So we're gonna go January 23rd, 2016, from 7:30 to 10:30 PM. We're gonna go Saturday, February 13th, good catch, by the way, from 2:16 to 7:30 to 10:30 PM. And we're gonna go Saturday, February 20th, from 2:16 to 7:30 to 10:30 PM. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the three.
Second,
Is there any discussion?
just as means of advertising, we just wanted to say that they're the local lounge and the Cat in the Cradle events over at the Byfield Art Center. So, good events.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have a long list. The first one is a new business license application. So we'll take that separately. It's Gary Materials doing, Business Advantage Service Center, Inc. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second,
Is there any discussion?
I
All
don't
those
see
in-
Gary here, is he?
Yes. That's Gary
Oh,
Senior.
okay. Is there anything you'd like to say about your new business? It's a free way to get things out to the public.
On TV?
I would like to say, honestly, it's not a new business.
Introduce yourself a little
I'm
bit.
Joyce Maturis. I live at 40 Point Road, Newbury, Mass. And Angie Service is the existing business. Unfortunately, somewhere along the way, we have just learned that we didn't have a Town of Newbury business license. How that happened, we don't know. We did have a license that was determined to be for the Commonwealth, and it was a business certificate. And recently, Gary needed to send a copy of the business license to a board that approves locksmith licenses, because in our business, we take automobile keys and make them work in the cars. So
Yep.
you have to be licensed to do that. And in coming down to see Leslie, we found out that we weren't in the books for a business license. I have no understanding. I do not know why. I don't know when this happened, or has it been an oversight? So Leslie told us to fill out an application for a new business. So I don't know what to tell you.
That sounds like an
I
oversight
think
to
you
me.
Told us enough.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks.
It's kind of embarrassing, because we just don't understand it.
It happens.
Yeah, I would say.
All right.
But
So,
thank you, gentlemen, and you, young lady.
Thank you.
All of you.
so where are we? All those,
Second.
do we have this, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
There,
Bob
it's
Lemon.
straightened out.
Yep. Now, as we go forward, we have some license renewals. And some of these license renewals are different from what we just spoke about, because I guess if they're renewals, they are in existence. So I will read these, and once again, there's a lot of them. I'll read them best I can. If there's something we want to discuss about one of them, we'll put a hold on it. So, here we go. Angie Service, it is the used car dealer license, class 2. Gary Machira is doing business with Applied Automotive Technology, 40 Point Road, general business automotive renewal. Donald Mueller, Romp and Roll, Ruby Turnpike. Brad Pritchard, doing business as Universal Visions, Rhonda Lanier, The Sanctuary B&B, Dietz and Lynch, Capital, on Green Street, Savanovich Family, right, Chuck? Did I get
Yep.
it? Savanovich Family Associates, Main Street. Henry C. Becker, Andrew Haley, Parker Marine Services, Danvers Butchery, Auto Works of Hampton Falls, Gail Gandolfi of Hoops and Fines, Kurt Lowell Company, James Noyce, Noyce Auto Service, Barry Davis, Automotive, Middle Road, Jody Wilkinson, Wilco Marine Restorations, Leslie D. Matthews, Dragonfly, Norma D. Reeder of Hightail Acres, David Williamson, Plum Enterprises on the parking lot, David Williams doing business as Enterprises William Parking Lot 3, and Bob Hardigan at Bob's Lobster. So we held none. I would entertain a motion to renew all those.
Motion
business.
to approve all, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Well, that was good.
Old business that is new and pertinent business, but this is a vote to fill out Plum Island Study Committee. The next line was Steve Mansion, vote was taken, so we need to take and appoint Steve. So he will replace Bob Connors, who withdrew on 1/5/16, so need a motion.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting updates? Correspondence? Town administrator, why don't you go before him?
Sure. Excuse me, my voice. Newbury took delivery of the new custom pumper. I had an opportunity to go over yesterday and look at the apparatus and was very impressed with all the custom features that they were able to get with it working within the budgeted appropriation. It's also the first piece of apparatus that the town of Newbury has purchased since we transitioned into a municipal fire department. So it's really exciting to be moving in that direction. Our annual budget process is underway. Budget hearings are being conducted. The calendar is on schedule. The preliminary calendar that I provided to you is still on schedule. But it's going to be really tight this year because everything's being moved up a month now that we've set our town meeting date for the end of April to occur before the annual election. I received, on December 22nd, I received notification from the district attorney's office that the case, the Leonard case, was heard on December 21st and was continued without a finding for a 3-year period, including restitution, requiring that restitution be made to the town. With regards to any retirement issues, I've had a couple of questions come up. They are all within the purview of the Essex Regional Retirement System. So that's something, because we're a small municipality and we're participants in the regional retirement system, we don't have the jurisdiction to make those decisions here. Those will be made by another board in consultation with their council. Municipal Resources, Inc. has been on site. They're the firm that we contracted with to help us develop an organizational chart for the new municipal fire department, outline the process to recommend changes for us, management changes, to recommend how we might go about that, to look at qualification, training, selection of officers, recruitment of personnel, because that's something we've heard over the years. Recruitment and retention of personnel in the department has been difficult. They're going to look at our existing job descriptions and write new ones for the positions that don't have them. And they're also going to review and comment on the apparatus and facilities as they currently exist. And just an update, the trailers, we've got 5 more months. Okay.
Do we have any quick questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
Will the town of Newbury be given the opportunity to comment to the Essex County Retirement Board? Will they be asked for our comment?
They would not,
Appropriate to comment?
they would not ask for our comment, but you're certainly welcome to send them correspondence if you're interested.
At the end of the last Selectmen's meeting, Alicia had asked about what the process was for looking for rental space, either temporary or long-term. I know it's been basically the holidays since the last time we met, but has there been any progress on finding either space for our empty trailers, our police, or all of us if we end up moving out of this building?
I have. Ellen's helped me to contact some local companies that have space available. There are a couple of questions, I guess I'd need some direction from the board. Do you want it to be in Newbury, or do you care if it's out of town, is number one. There are some available in Newburyport that are closer to the existing town hall. There are others we've had that are in Newbury and in Byfield as well. The preliminary numbers based on a year for just housing the existing trailers, the personnel in the existing trailers, looking at the square footage that we need for that, it looked like it would be in excess of 60,000 a year. Obviously, it would be significantly more if we were looking at moving the entire function out. I would have to go out to bid once we determined who we were going to move, but just to give you an idea of how much it would cost.
I think before we comment or in Newbury or out of Newbury, we think about it a little.
Sure.
You know, it's a process that you need to kind of.
I didn't know if you wanted to eliminate anything before we put together a bid package and send it out. I wanted to make sure
Because at
I
least
understood
then
what
we
you
have
wanted.
I mean, I'd like to stay in Newbury, but if there's some rental that I don't know about that's very close, I mean, that needs to be thought about. So,
No significant difference in price between.
one thing I'd like to say that has to do with the beginning of Tracy's report, that has to do with the fire department. If any of the board hasn't had time to go over, JR, did you get over? You saw the new engine, right?
No, I haven't yet.
If anyone, you should go over and take a look at the new engine. One of the things that came to me that I think we all have to think about, and maybe the town should know, I mean, and I might be overglossing this, but a lot of people in town have expressed to me, you know, how did Protection Two, let's say, get into such bad conditions with their fire trucks? Well, with the addition of this vehicle, and Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong, when you go over there to look, there was a grant for another fire truck to make what they needed. And the other truck, I mean, they're starting to look pretty good there. I mean, I'd say their equipment is decent. So I'd like to dispel that myth that everything's falling apart because their trucks aren't too bad. Or am I wrong? You're not saying anything?
No, honestly, I'm waiting to get the report from the experts. I don't know enough
I
about
mean,
fire
the ladder's
apparatus to
like in
comment.
Thousands, I think, and the other truck is not.
Yeah, we have some new pieces of apparatus that are
I
obviously,
was happy to see
yeah.
that, you know, and I'm sure that, you know, Byfield's, I mean, so the fire department is moving in a good direction that way,
Yep,
equipment-wise.
definitely.
Well, I saw a picture of the new fire truck on Facebook, and it looked fabulous.
Yeah, and if you get a chance, it's really worth looking at, because you can look around. Doesn't mean that the fire station looks spectacular, but the
So,
equipment's not.
Can we go back to a second about moving the town, what town departments are on the list that aren't gonna have housing in 5 months?
The Board of Health,
Board of Health,
Inspectional Services, Conservation Commission. I believe the fire chief will be, plans to move over here and to the station.
so he's all set?
And the chief, the deputy chief, and the detective are all in the trailer out here.
And that's going too.
They're all going.
So we need to find office space for the police department too.
And what is the square footage? Do you have that off the top of your head?
It was right around 5,000 square feet. It would also allow for moving the records that are stored out at the transfer station currently.
Yeah, we gotta get those out of there.
Wow.
Thank you. Citizens' concerns, yes. Go ahead, Eric, you were.
I know Jim, you're here for that. Just one quick thing that I think. I'd like to say that I've been to 2.5 of the Selectmen coffee talks on Saturday, and I found them very helpful. I wasn't there to pitch the municipal building committee. I was there to listen, and if someone had a question, be there to answer it. Very surprised that Alicia's was mostly focused on Plum Island issues. So I'd also know that the last one wasn't very well attended. So if there could be, you guys could keep announcing it and letting people know what the next one is each time you meet, that would be good. If you could send Jen a note, or if Jen, you could kindly put it in any reporting you do. The whole process of everything I think everyone's trying to do is to get the residents' input and feedback and understanding and be a part of what's going on in our town. So,
So thank you, mine's the
Thank
next
you.
one, and that's gonna cost more coffee.
So JR, did you have one this past Saturday?
I did.
How was that?
It was good. It was me and Jim.
Really?
Yeah.
And I wonder if, was it in the paper at all? Do you know, Jen?
I don't know if we're running the paper. I mean, I initially ran all of the dates.
Right.
I didn't follow up and run a specific one for everyone. So
All
if
right.
anybody wants to shoot me as a reminder, can do that, and I'll try to get it in.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Citizens' concerns. James, how would you like to start that? We have your correspondence in hand, and I believe we have looked at it. Most of us, I'm sure.
Oh, my God, I'm gonna go one at a time.
Elm Street.
So
I have two letters into the board, one dated December 15th, the other one dated January 5th. They're separate but related issues. First package on December 15th is a two-page letter, a budget, which has amounts and scope of work in it, and also a 11 by 17 schedule. I'm providing an option plan, and this is what I consider to be very important, keeping our options open. The conceptual budget, the scope of work is laid out into 5 items. I've listed that on the first page of my letter. We'll get into that when we get to that sheet. Also, we'll get into the schedule. I also have a site plan if you're interested, and if you're familiar in Ultimate, if you want, I'll lay the sheet out in front of you unless you've gone through it yourselves. Any comments on that?
Familiar with the site.
Okay. I've listed on the second page some of the advantage of what I consider the option plan, and those items are that the town hall remains in place, the parking will increase, the design for the police facilities should be more efficient, access for police vehicles should be much enhanced, parking of the police facilities will increase significantly, parking for the general public will be safer and significantly increased, renovations and upgrades for Fire Company 2 will be completed. This plan also allows for considerable flexibility in the implementation. Plan allows for adequate details and clarity of presentation to the voters. The plan has the potential to cost less, and an item I didn't list here is this allows for future expansion of the town hall if this approach is embraced. Obviously, the key here is to make this plan a real possibility is the property of Fire Company 2. My current understanding is there's no ongoing negotiations with the fire company at this time.
That's
What
incorrect.
Huh?
That's incorrect.
Okay, maybe you could update me as to,
Negotiations are conducted privately. They're not, I won't be reporting that to the board until
That
it's
the-
done.
the good part from what I'm hearing is that is negotiations ongoing, and I can only hope that they will continue to be a works in progress continuously, because ultimately it's going to be in the best interest of the town. When it happens, I'm not in a position to know, certainly you would know better, but that's the emphasis and the importance is something to do in working out a deal with the fire company. On my attachment for my budget, I have 5 items here. The first one is a cost for the Fire Company 2, which is nothing more than numbers that have existed here for some time. On to item 2, I put a budget together for a standalone police department in the amount of $5.5 million. These numbers are very much in line with what Eric has done. So I've put in hard costs and soft costs, escalations. Again, this is keeping in mind that even the budget that CSS did a year and a half ago was all based on conceptual drawings. as will be the estimate you get here this spring from CSS and a third-party estimator. It's all based on conceptual drawings. There are no plans and specifications. I put in money here for a new town hall, which I think is probably well more than is necessary. And my thoughts here are,
You mean the renovation?
excuse me, renovation of town hall, which would be more than I think is necessary. And some items can fall out of this quite easily. And if we bring it under $1.5 million, there'll be no need for an OPM, a requirement for an OPM, whether you engage one or not, that would be another story. That number is somewhat higher, but somewhat also in line as to what you did 18 months ago when you had the hard cost and the soft cost and the CSS estimate. Item 4 is the, what money could be spent on renovation of Fire Company 2, if in fact it has to be done. Right now, the best available information I have is the work over there is not quantifiable. They have a list of things they'd like attended to, but until you start quantifying this on lengths and widths and heights and counts, there's no way to come up with an estimate. That number could be twice as amount, it could be 3 times that amount. There's just no way of knowing. Item 5, I put together some estimates for relocation of your police and your town hall. These again are subject to a couple of things, the unit price, whatever square footage you need. You're paying so many dollars per square foot per year, plus utilities and all the other costs associated with it. And it's obviously 2 different animals, what you need for the town hall versus what you need for the fire department. But it appears from what I just heard from Tracy, that she's well into that procurement, and that's where those numbers come from. So,
Jim, can I just say this
Sure.
too? Because we've got this in front of us, and Jen or other people on TV might be a little bit in a vacuum, and I might have fallen asleep, but all the hard work that Jim's done is evolved around the fact of his 5 steps, which is, just so everyone is kind of understanding, it is purchase the property from Fire Company 2, construction of new standalone police department on Morgan Avenue, which would have been the property out front by Fire Company 2, renovations to first floor and basement of Town Hall. Step number 4 would be renovations and upgrades for Fire Company number 2. And then would be number 5 is what you just spoke about, which is the temporary relocations of police department and town offices, just so it kind of flows together. And then what was the final cost of those that you have?
the total adds to $8.7 million.
Right. And then your second letter, as I read it, which you're gonna tell us about now, kind of evolves around this plan, right? Why it's a better plan to do this. Isn't the second part of this?
Yes and no, but let's get to the end.
All right, go
Let's
ahead.
talk through those details. Is there any questions then further on the budget or clarifications? No? Okay. And the last page I had was a schedule I put together, which Eric has seen this for some time. I really haven't had any feedback from any people, but it's really talking about in the order of magnitude, whatever happens here, whichever plan you move ahead with, you're probably talking 2.5 years to implement the plan. So, but that's also subject to delays and other problems that may come up along the way, but now we're only speculating. On to my second letter, which is the one of January 5th. And this is a 3-page letter. And the subject here is the evaluation of the CSS option number 2. And that's the option that was generated a year and a half ago, and presently what Eric is pursuing to refine it with better information today than they had a year and a half ago. So this is my comment. This, in the new joint town hall and the police department, and my evaluation of where I think you are there. Again, the site plan is critical here. One thing that's very important is that the footprint is considerably enlarged on the new facility than your present building. That takes up a lot of valuable space outside this building. I've listed down the pros, which are obvious. You have a brand-new building that lasts for 50 years. These are no-brainers, and I'm sure this list could be expanded. Anybody wants to spend the time to list bigger and better things. My biggest concern here is, on page 2, it starts, and this is the cons. And I'm not gonna read all of them, they go on to page 2 and 3, but they number 21 items. But I will focus on what I consider probably the more paramount issues. First, the town hall will be demolished. To implement this new plan that's presently on the table, and the NBC is moving ahead with, is this building has to be torn down. Parking will not materially change. Now, I've come to that determination by taking a plan and drawing some parking spaces on it. It's not perfect. Eric's final drawings will tell us in much more detail where that's gonna come to be. The new building area is gonna be 2.5 times the area existing building, and you're not gonna have any more parking. That's an astounding fact when you start thinking about that. The this year's current proposal to the voters for this facility, as of the October estimate that the board has, is about $8 million. Last year, the feedback that I've heard several times at meetings from the voters was that a new town hall was not needed. In effect, this is what the present plan is proposing to the town, to give them a new town hall. The traffic, you're going from 4 entrance and egress locations to 5. This certainly won't improve traffic. It'll probably add to congestion and safe entrances and egresses to the building. There are fixes to that. That doesn't have to stay at those. Smart engineering can overcome that issue.
Like, some of these things too, as we go forward, they could change a little too. Some of your cons, like 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to, you know.
Yes?
They could not, ways of entering the facility could change.
Yes, sir.
Because they could become parking spaces. So, I mean, when we take these into account as a board, I mean, Eric's still working through his other process, which your process is kind of going along. And this process, which is really well done, Jim, is a process that we've all kind of seen before. That's putting the fire station down there. We've all and renovating this building. We've all been on that page. Whether it's good or bad, we've been on that page.
Right.
Go ahead.
With the additional square footage for both the town and the police, there's obviously gonna be additional employees, and with additional employees brings additional parking requirements.
Well, it's not my understanding that we're gonna be hiring anyone additional. The town is not planning to grow with this. It's just gonna fulfill the needs that we have right now.
Well, let me address that in numbers. Presently, this building isn't big enough, and you're gonna have more square footage than we presently have to make this.
But that doesn't mean we need to add employees.
Well, when I hear descriptions that you might need an engineer or a DPW person up here, it tells me that you're gonna relocate somebody from somewhere else and office them here. That means there's a parking space required for each person. You do
Well,
that.
that's an assumption that you're making on your own. Have you looked at the town planner's office? Have you seen the space that she works in?
Alicia, so you understand, I agree that the town hall needs more space, but there's a different way to do it than to tear the building down.
Oh, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not talking about tearing the building. I'm talking about the assumption that you made that we're gonna be hiring more people. That is not a true assumption, and I do not want the townspeople to think that that is even an option. That's not true.
I've seen in writing that the DPW director has suggested in the future there'll be probably a town engineer.
Now,
Am I mistaken?
No.
Not a suggestion of the DPW director.
I was gonna say, something doesn't look right, and I think Alicia has made a really good point, and I think the point right now is pretty valid, and it's really, it's okay, let it go.
Sure.
It's not important.
Okay. And putting this in here, and this applies regardless of which plan you go, and that's the cost. Build detention areas will be substantial. I've asked Eric, and I don't know if he's gonna be able to get it out of CSS, for a breakout on the cost for detention. That's a significant cost, and I think the board should be aware of that, and whether you really need detention. That's an issue.
Did you look, just for kicks, maybe Eric can tell me, Mike knows, and this is just a sense I have. I don't know if there's any $5.5 million or $4.5 million police stations that are being built that doesn't have some ability to hold someone. I think it's, if you're gonna spend that much money to build a new police station, you gotta be able to put someone that's a danger into temporary, semi-temporary, non-temp, I mean, you gotta have some place to detain someone, and it's gotta have male and female and maybe children, otherwise, what are you gonna do with them?
Well, that's an issue, and I don't know if it's required by law, or if it's just a want.
All right, so it's,
So it's not my call.
okay, good.
But it is important is, it's a very expensive issue, not only to build, but to maintain for 50 years.
All right, good. Thanks, Jimmy.
So I have another question. Are you, when you're done, I don't want to interrupt you, so I want you to finish what you're doing, but then I do have a question.
Sure.
Thank you.
The new plan is to have two buildings together, and the personnel access between a secure facility, the police department, and a non-secure facility. I don't know if that makes sense. You butt these together, you have common stairways. That means you're gonna have several doors going into a secure area. It can be done, I'm not saying it can't, but again, why would you wanna do that if you wouldn't have to? I'm not gonna elaborate any further. You can read
Oh, you
what's in
did
front of
good
you.
job.
I'm trying to focus on the more important issues, although the other ones have some importance too. I'm looking at this collectively as 21 items that are red flag to me, they're saying, this should be looked at very carefully. In any case, one of my last few sentences here reads, if any of these issues are credible reasons, then other options should be considered. And also, does the board want to move ahead with a town, with a plan that they may regret for 50 years? This isn't a short-term plan, this is a long-term, expensive plan, and it's gonna stay here. So we certainly want to make sure we're all on the same page as this. My comments overall are that the CSS option number 2 is the bad plan, and there are better options.
Have you
But
seen
if-
that? Have you seen that yet? Because we haven't seen it.
Alicia, if I could finish, and I'll answer all your questions, please.
Yeah.
If you have a clear conscience with the plan at hand, and you can live with yourselves, and you think it's the best interest of the town, and you can sleep at night, your decision is easy. If not, then you need to consider other options. The town hall is a picturesque classic, an architectural treasure, symbolic of the town. The town hall is a warm and efficient place to do business and socialize. The town is made of wood, a material that can last hundreds of years. This building could be renovated and still be used 100 years from now. Just like many other structures, as you drive down into Newburyport, they're all 100 and 200 years old. Still very useful. I asked the question, why would anybody in their right mind want to tear down the town hall? It's a bad plan, there are better options that would be more beneficial to the town. That's my presentation. Thank you for allowing me to do that. And Alicia, you had some questions?
I do. So, you did a lot of work here, and it's really evident that, you put a lot of thought into it. Thank you. My first question is, by presenting, now, I'm new to the board. I don't know, I think JR might be in the same boat I am, but I'm not quite sure. So I have never seen any architectural plans from the CSS that you're talking about. I don't understand, and this could be my naivety, I don't understand what your intent and purpose was of this presentation to us, when we haven't seen the municipal building committees.
Okay, the plans exist, Martha has some, and the CSS report is 8.5 by 11, they're shrunk up there. So that's an extensive report that's 18 months old. I've gone through it in detail.
Yeah, but what was the
Now,
purpose of this?
I've given you 2 letters of separate but related issues. The first, I think the best plan is to secure the fire company property and build a new police station standalone. You do that, you relocate your police department in there with no relocation 2 years from now. You then take this building, you spend $1.5 million, do the renovations to it, and then whatever agreement you've reached with the fire company, and obviously they need some help over there, you hire an architect, put a scope of work together, a cost, and in time, build out their facility too. That's my plan that I did in my first letter. The second letter is, I'm addressing specifically the plan at hand.
That we
I
haven't
can say-
seen yet, that we haven't
Well,
seen yet.
no, you effectively have, it's option 2, it's not materially different, that's been out there for 18 months.
Okay,
It's very clear, the scope of work basically won't change, it'll increase a little in square footage, there'll be some bells and whistles, but basically you're gonna have the same thing that's been done, it's been now updated in 2 years. And I'm saying that what's being done there, I don't think is a good plan, it's a bad plan.
okay. In your opinion.
Now,
And it's not only, and I determined the opinion based on looking at a lot of facts, and that's why I wrote them down, so there'd be no misunderstanding as to where I'm coming from. I can only speak for myself, but just recently, I've heard others saying the same thing. Ironically, this morning, I heard this at the meeting. But this is serious business, and I think I've spoken enough, but let me answer a few more questions. Jeff, you had some more questions?
my thought was, and there could be some quick questions from the board, I would really like to thank you. The only thing that starts to, and Eric did mention before, that some of the ideas and some of the things that you put into this are still being looked at least in his peripheral vision. I know you heard that. But for us, at our level, at least now, because the municipal building is closing in on a charge, some of this, and I don't wanna say it was old hat, but some of this obviously the board has seen before, and it's coming probably more in your vision, and we kinda have already seen it. Whether we deemed it to be good, bad, or indifferent, we actually put together after listening to people, especially on that Saturday, a different charge. However, I do not take away one bit from this, and I would like to, like I said, thank you for your work, but at least for me, who does look at the agenda, and who does kind of go through what goes on the agenda, or should I say, does go through what goes on the agenda, I'm gonna have to kind of relegate some of this, and I told you, because I've spoken with you before, back into Eric's lap at the Municipal Building Committee for the end of his meetings, because if we entertained everything at this level, it would complicate the fact of what Eric is actually doing at his level for us to actually draw our stipulative conclusions from.
I understand that clearly, and I think I've
And I-
bent over backwards with Eric, keeping him in the communication chains between his emails and copies of everything I've put forward. In fact, it's even more timely than the board receives them. One thing I noted in my November email to you is, I'm concerned with the rush to judgment, just because we think we have to make a decision in April. Keep in mind, we really don't have to make a decision in April. Better to make no decision than to make a bad decision.
The only other thing, and I'm gonna be quiet after this, as you heard before when Alicia asked, where are we gonna start to rent, where are we going, the trailers are leaving. I think we don't have a lot of
Now,
cars
let-
downtown.
let me-
But
I'm-
let me say this, it's not for you and I to decide.
Yep.
It's gonna go to town meeting and a vote. But go ahead.
But let me ask, I just heard recently, the concept was, if there's a conscientious effort to move ahead to try to do something, then these trailers could stay if they knew you really had a hard
No,
plan. Now,
Yeah,
that's not
that's
accurate.
not. Now, well,
I'll tell you
that-
what,
that-
if I
that
could, if I
means-
could push that through, I would.
That's very, very unfortunate, because now you're being forced into spending a lot of money on relocation, and it's really gonna be a cluster.
Well, with all due
Chairman.
respect, with all due respect, this town has needed a municipal building for 15 years.
And
And
regardless
the,
of.
don't,
regardless
wait a
of
minute,
which-
don't interrupt me, please,
Longer.
please, okay? The police department works in horrific conditions. I feel, I understand what what you did here, and it's a lot of work, and I truly appreciate it. And I, as, to speak for myself, would like to withhold any more comment, Mr. Chairman, until we get something from the Municipal Building Committee, and then we move forward from there. But moving forward, I strongly suggest that this Board of Selectmen do not entertain these types of things anymore, and it goes through the Municipal Building Committee. The municipal building, including the chair back there, Eric, has put in tremendous amount of free time, volunteer time for the town of Newbury. I do not want to undercut anything he does.
Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I just said that.
Yeah, well,
So,
I
glad you
reiterated,
reinforced my
because that's the way I feel.
And many people who attended the MBC meetings understand that clearly, and ironically, the gospel that we were preached at the MBC meetings was, come to the Board of Selectmen. They would not entertain many issues brought
Early.
up by the public. So
Early.
Now, this happened in October and
Well,
November.
Yep.
And it-
But we
until-
listen to
until-
you, we listen to you.
Well, I understand, but
I'm a
I'm just
pre-
saying.
All right, let's go. Anyone else real quick? Nothing?
But how, just
Go.
clarify, please, so
Yeah.
I'm confused still. How did it get on the agenda?
Because I let it on the agenda. I asked Jim, Jim took the time, and I said, we'll definitely listen to Jim this time. And when the agenda was set, I okayed it. I think it's pretty plain, and Alicia certainly, she feels the exact same way as I did and reinforced me. We're gonna kind of cut down
Just
communication at this
one
level because
last thing,
Eric's
please.
doing it in the exact same way.
And it's the relocation of personnel. You've now told me if July 1st you have to do this, you're gonna put people up for 2 years. That's what it's gonna take to get a new facility. So whatever the cost you may look at, it's best you double them if you're only carrying it for a year, because it's gonna be 2.
And just, I don't mean to keep beating it, but I want to make sure I have it accurate. A couple of things. I heard the town administrator say that she was not going to discuss whether she was in negotiations with
No.
the fire.
I am actively in negotiations with the fire department. I'm not gonna discuss any of the terms that are being negotiated until I meet with the board in the executive section and an agreement is reached, which has not happened
And that's only
today.
fair. That's only fair.
That's law, I think, isn't it?
It seemed like you guys were saying different things, so I wanted
Yep,
to make sure
sorry.
I understood that. And just to be 100% clear, the building committee has not, because I apologize, I haven't been to their meetings. Well, I wish I could have.
7 a.m., John.
You guys have not come forward with any, because the last time I was really looking at this, the charge was to look at some different solutions.
We are.
And is that still what you're doing?
We're still doing it.
Yeah,
Okay, so there's no one plan against
No,
another plan at
no.
this point?
no.
Nothing that's been issued.
Eric, you want to say anything more before I do review of minutes?
Go ahead.
Okay.
James, thanks.
I've been asked to stop, so you read it.
Okay, so
Thanks, Jim.
I appreciate Jim stopping. I do appreciate, and the Municipal Building Committee appreciates Jim and the other residents coming forward with their ideas. And it was me that sent Jim to you with the issues as we were trying to get started and get everything back on track and deal with what this law was and the OPM and the procurement, to saying, we got people with all these other ideas, go talk to the selectmen. And it really came about because people kept coming back with regional dispatch. It's never the Municipal Buildings Committee's task or charge to vet out the regional dispatch issue. I've done research of my own, I've called them, I've talked to things. The basis for the discussion that has come up from various people is that there would be a savings if we went to regional dispatch. And that has never been proven out with any of the numbers, even from numbers I've received from them. I haven't gotten the whole ball of wax. We're a small town. The size of the facility downstairs is less than half of what it should be per state regulations on the minimal correctional facilities. For all the comparison projects that we received from CSS Architects and my reaching out to Donovan Sweeney, a Boston architect that does municipal facilities, 8,000 square feet was about the smallest police station out of any of I could show you at least 25 comparisons. And, we're at 9.5, maybe 10, depending on what the grossing factor and how efficient the building is. And so we're right at the minimum of anything that's been built in the area recently. And I'd like to say it and not have the chief say it, but you know, the understanding that, I understand that was picked up and brought forward is that the selectmen had vetted the regional dispatch issue previously on previous boards and was presented at the Public Safety Site Selection Committee, which informed them in terms of what they did for sites and actually engaging the fire company before the Municipal Building Committee was even involved. If we have 3 people on at night, and Chief, please speak up if I'm wrong here, and you take one of those persons away, it means that we have a locked facility no matter where it is. That means that we have 2 people, 2 officers in cruisers. You're not gonna save the higher salary because you wouldn't get rid of the higher salary and just put the 2 officers in the car. So the savings differential right there starts to fall apart. And the fact that we have a closed facility. And the study could be the tip of the iceberg. So we've been through that. And when those issues come up and people keep asking about that, the only thing the Municipal Building Committee can do is refer them back to you. So Jim got to you through me. That's how it happened. Board of Selectmen, understanding, have listened, and taken Jim's letter. We will try to obviously take all the good pros that Jim has put together and try to answer all the cons. In the charge that he gave the Municipal Building Committee, I gave direction to CSS to do something a little bit different. I said, take the site plan, and when you give us the site plan, put it on a page so it's not this little thing in the corner that people can't read. Put it on one page, and when you give us the new facility here, let's take an option that proposes that someday there's a new fire station on the far lot, and maybe there's a parking lot between these 2 buildings. The next plan, do it a little differently. Show the plan of a town hall renovation with a new police station, with trailer addition, so that all the spaces, and then show a parking lot on the far side where there is an empty lot right now. We're not proposing that. That wasn't part of the charge, but in terms of the answering questions, we thought it was valid to try to include that and include that in cost estimates. So we hope to answer a fair amount of the questions. Some questions that Jim has won't come out until we actually hire a designer and they take the program and say, that's a great conceptual design, and do a design as they put it together, as they try to economize, as what we're paying them to do.
Well, I think what you did was super intelligent, because as you went forward with our charge, you saw that there could be some information you would like to have. And I think that's great.
And as much as we're doing that, we're not banking on anything or any involvement from the fire company at this point for what we're making the recommendation.
And you're still moving forward on the charge.
And
Just
we've got a size of a
a lot more
building that's a little bit bigger, and there's a DPW office, which isn't intended to hold a person, but it's intended to have a DPW with records or files or maps for conveying information to various departments in here. One of the things that's greatly lacking in this building is a conference room for someone to come in and talk to the assessor or town administrator in a separate room. You guys don't have a room.
There's no privacy, yeah.
There's no privacy. So, you know.
There's no privacy here, even in the offices.
Right. So there is a room that's on there for a town engineer. John O'Connell himself has spoken up, and he said words you probably don't want to hear, but, you know, he's given you a lot of good service. And we might have to go out and find it's more economical to have somebody come in on a part-time basis and have a place in which to do stuff. And once we get into the next phase, if we're trying to control costs, there are some rooms we might decide in the design phase, in order to be on budget, there is no town engineer room, something like that. So the program does say one thing, it is a little fluid. With this conceptual design, people see things on paper and get very particular, and they should, but it's also a point in the process. It's not that this is exactly it and that's the end all. So we hope to answer Jim's questions. Jim, we appreciate you coming to the meetings, and off to work.
Chief,
Thank
do you
you,
want to
Eric.
add anything else, because you came tonight?
Yeah, just for a second. Thank you, Eric. As far as the lockup goes, having a lockup is very expensive. It's a necessity in police work. We take people into custody. They always, well, most of the time don't want to visit with us. So we have to have a secure place to hold them. The lockup we currently have is, as you all know, is a liability, a tremendous liability. There are so many rules and regulations as far as police lockups go, and the building inspector and the state can speak to it far better than I can, but we fail our cell inspection every year. As such, we spend a lot of money every time we are holding somebody for any more than a couple of hours. We take them down to Essex County Sheriff's Department, so I have to hire somebody out to drive them down because our cells are such a liability. We're not in the jail business. I don't want to keep prisoners for days or weeks, but to hold them for a few hours, to hold somebody overnight, to hold somebody that has a default warrant for a weekend, sometimes we have to do that. And if I have to hold somebody in the police station for longer than a few hours, I have to hire somebody on overtime if the sheriff's department can't keep them, to sit right in front of that cell door to make sure that they're all right. And to me, that seems like it's a tremendous waste of money, but it's, you know, in the long run, that saves a lot of liability. So as far as the lockup goes, if you're designing a police station without a lockup, I think you're wasting your money. I mean, we don't have to have a tremendous amount of cells, but we do need 1 or 2 secure holding cells that are state compliant. I mean,
The lockup was the very first thing that we all really knew about, as at least
Yes.
me, as selectman a long time ago, how bad our lockup situation was. That was, there's no argument from us.
As far as regional dispatch, that's a discussion for another day. You all know my position on it. However, if that's something the town wants to entertain, I feel that designing a new public safety building without a communications center is a huge mistake. It's a huge mistake because in a large-scale emergency, like we had 2 winters ago on Plum Island, that emergency stretched for 6 or 7 days. Regional dispatch isn't going to be able to cover all our needs. Police, fire, EMS, emergency management, we need our own communications center. So whether the Board of Selectmen and the town decides we're not going to man it all the time, that's an issue for another day. But as far as designing a building, I think it's a tremendous mistake to design a building without a communications center. And that's my opinion.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you, Mike.
Mike, what you just said, we might not be an urban village, you know, in Boston. We certainly have parts of our community that are very open to the Mother Nature.
Absolutely.
So, thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mike, where he goes.
I'd just like to say that I would never be comfortable with a police department that does not have lockup facilities, and I would never be comfortable going to dispatch. I mean, I think my mind is made up forever on that one. Hearing about the way things go in other towns that have gone to regional dispatch, I really don't hear anything favorable about it.
Well, I won't comment on that. The sheriff's department and regional dispatch, for the volume of calls they get, they do a tremendous job. Is there money savings? I think the numbers will bear it out eventually. There will be, as far as personnel goes. As far as service to this town, I'm not a proponent of it. I don't think it's the right thing for us, and I'm not a territorial guy, but we do so many things downstairs in that communications center that I think I'll put the people that run that communications center up against anybody as far as their talent, their skill, their training. They do a tremendous job downstairs. I'm proud of every one of them. All of my officers are trained as in communications as well, and they do a tremendous job. So, you know, I'll stand up against anybody for that.
There's a big thing with knowing the town.
Yes.
Many times I have sat on a red phone, pick the phone up, and I know who it is before they get through speaking, and I can get things going already. Dispatchers knowing the town are huge in my mind. So JR's comment, I concur.
One of the things for regional dispatch, closing the police station, I am always against, number one. But in the summertime with the beach,
Yep.
all night long we get a tremendous amount of walk-in people for service. They walk in, some people are coming off the beach having a medical issue, some people coming off the beach reporting something. To have them have to pick up a phone and buzz to the cruiser out on patrol, I'm not comfortable with that. And I know a lot of other towns do it, and they're satisfied with that. I'm not comfortable with that.
Okay.
Okay?
But I think just to follow up on Chuck's for one more thing before you go. I'm not talking about the urban village again either, but when we're worried about getting the right streets sometimes, it certainly bifurcates immensely outward when we have fishermen on our waters we've got such open space, and we have fish and wildlife lands. That's why we have some of the vehicles we have. People can get hurt and get lost in some places in our town that don't exist in other towns.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's nice to know that everyone kind of knows where those little nooks and crannies are.
Well, we go from very forested to the west to a beach community to the east. It's a diverse community, so
Thanks.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
John, real quick. Come on up, quick, introduce yourself. And then I'm going to my review of meeting minutes.
John Ashton,
Yeah, we got one more there. He's
John
got some-
Ashton, 2 Lund Street in Byfield. The observation that a lot of these things have already been vetted, and to your mind, they've been answered because you've looked into what's going on. I've said that I'd like to help promote a yes vote for this upcoming election. And sometimes these questions could be asked of me what people don't know. So if there's a list of things that you have that you've already vetted and you've got the answer for why it's not a good idea to do it, or it is a good idea to do it, it'd be helpful for me to have it.
I think we're gonna put something together. I think the municipal building committee is working on that, John.
Okay.
John,
Thank you so much for getting the word out.
Thanks.
Thanks, John.
One more thing while I have it. In terms of the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 7C, public building design, project design and services for cities and towns. Well, we're a town. Any project that has an estimated construction cost of more than $100,000 or an estimated design cost of more than $10,000 must go through the qualification-based selection process that is in the RFP that was already created. So you have to set it up, you have to interview, and then you have to negotiate. Chapter 149, which is building construction contracts, any project that's over $100,000 must go through the file subbids. If it's more than 1.5 million, now you're into hiring an OPM before you hire the designer. $100,000 or more, you can hire the designer, and you don't necessarily need an OPM. I think in this day and age, in terms of oversight, that it's not going to be you, it's not going to be Sam, it's not going to be me or anybody on the municipal building committee. There will be people that certainly help out and have experience in construction, but the responsible authority that the town is going to hire to manage the oversight of payment and work and process, there'll be a clerk of the work, and an OPM would be a very wise decision these days. It wasn't around for the library, but I've certainly heard enough quips about let's not go through and do another one of those projects again. It's people need to be invested, and you need to get the right people to manage the process in order for the satisfaction of everybody. And if everybody thinks somebody else is going to do it, we're all going to be in trouble with the process.
No, I'm strongly in favor of hiring somebody to look out for the best interests of the taxpayer in the town of Newbury's money. That's how I feel.
Sarah,
Thank you.
thank you. And I'd like to comment that it was a bunch of minutes that were well received. Thank everyone for being here tonight and talking about what we just talked about. Review of meeting minutes, I believe everyone was here.
Motion to
I would
approve.
entertain a motion.
Motion to approve is read.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion about meeting minutes? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we have warrants tonight?
We do.
We do have executive session. If we vote to go into executive session, which we will not reconvene at the conclusion of executive session, can we sign the warrants before an executive session, Ginny? After we talk about executive session, or do we have to stay here and sign the warrants now?
We can sign them anytime.
They have a lot to sign.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
warrants have to be voted on to accept.
Yeah, we got to vote to sign them, but we can sign them in
We
there.
don't know yet, I'm asking town
Oh, yeah, you
council.
can vote to sign them and sign them.
And sign them in there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we
We've
don't
done
have
it
to sign
before.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
So
I've
I
done
would
it before,
entertain a
that's why I,
motion to sign the warrants.
So moved.
Second?
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We need to go into executive session, and I'm going to pass this to Damon because he's read it before.
I move we enter into executive session to discuss the collective bargaining sessions. I'll call for a roll vote. Roll call vote.
Yep.
Chairman Walker.
Yes.
Selectman Bear.
Yep.
Do we have to
Vice.
say our name, Ellen? No?
Yes.
I think we do. Jeff Walker, yes.
Selectman Bear,
Chuck Beer, yep.
Selectman Jesperson, Damon Jesperson, yes. Selectman Colby,
J.R. Colby, yes.
Selectman Greco.
Alicia Greco, yes.
This meeting will not reconvene at the conclusion of the executive session.
Are you still a secretary?
Clerk, yes.
Clerk, I mean, yeah, all right. I know you look like a little secretary. All right.